Hey guys, it's Rachel, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about two different kinds of lemon bars. You guys responded really positively to the video that I made with 3 different kinds of chocolate chip cookies, so I thought I would compare 2 different recipes for lemon bars. And today I'm comparing New York Times cooking with Martha Stewart. Right off the bat, looking at the 2 different recipes, I noticed that the New York Times recipe requires a few more ingredients that you might not have at home. You're going to need like flaky sea salt, olive oil, sea salt, things like that. And that's not something you're going to need for the Martha Stewart recipe at all. Both recipes start out with something that's incredibly important, the lemon bar crust. So we are going to go ahead and prepare the crusts for these 2 different recipes. So for the shortbread crust from the New York Times recipe, we are going to combine several ingredients. So this includes our flour, regular granulated sugar, powdered sugar, and then also lemon zest, which is kind of an unusual twist for the crust. I mean, having lemon zest inside the lemon bar filling makes complete sense, but this one is actually embedded in the crust as well. So you'll go ahead and cut in the butter until your flour, sugar, lemon zest, and buttery mixture all kind of come together. It'll be pretty much like sand or dirt. It's very dry, so don't worry about adding any water to it. You'll notice that if you like kind of stick your hand in and just like squeeze, it'll kind of come together just enough to make a shortbready crust. So don't try and add water or anything to this. On the other hand, Martha Stewart makes her crust a little bit differently. She actually uses an electric mixer and she beats together room temperature butter with a little bit of sugar and salt until it's kind of whipped up together. And yeah, if you think about it, her crust is literally just butter and sugar. So I don't know if you can go wrong there either. And once you've got the crust prepared for both recipes, you'll do the same exact thing. You'll scoop in your dough to your tin and press it down as compactly as you can. So for the New York Times shortbread crust recipe, we're going to bake it off until it's pale golden brown, about 30 to 35 minutes. Martha Stewart's recipe is a little bit different. Right before we bake it off, we're going to use a fork and prick a bunch of little holes into the shortbread crust so that it doesn't puff up or rise when it bakes. But it's the same thing, we're going to bake it off until it reaches kind of a pale golden brown color. So when making lemon bars, you know, one of the core things that you need is a ton of lemon juice. And just squeezing that lemon juice by hand can be such a pain in the butt. So I've partnered with Comfee in order to show you guys and teach you guys about one of their new products, which is their juice masticator. And it comes in this glorious mint green color, which is super adorable. But basically you can throw in fruits and veggies and it'll like extract the juice and then spit out the pulp on the other end. It works really well. It's super quiet. I've had other juicers that are super loud. So this one is actually quite quiet and blends in sort of seamlessly into your kitchen. And also you cannot deny how cute the mint green color is. Oh, and before you actually juice your lemons, make sure you grab some of that lemon zest. And you only want the outer rind. You don't want to get that white bit because that'll be a little bit bitter. Okay, so now that we've got our lemon zest and our lemon juice, courtesy of the Comfee juicer extractor, we are going to proceed with the lemon curd. For the New York Times recipe, you're going to need a couple of ingredients in order to produce this lemon curd. In a saucepan, you're going to go ahead and combine your lemon juice, your egg yolks, your eggs, your cornstarch, and your sea salt. And don't forget sugar. And we're going to whisk those ingredients together until you reach a boil. And make sure that you reach a boil, otherwise the cornstarch won't activate and it won't be like thick and curdy. And once your mixture has boiled, go ahead and remove it from the heat and then add in your olive oil, your butter, and your lemon zest. This is a unique addition. You don't normally see olive oil in lemon bars, but I think it adds a really nice depth of flavor. For the Martha Stewart recipe, it's super simple to make the filling. All you have to do is combine some sweetened condensed milk with your egg yolks and lemon juice and just whisk it together and you're good to go. Well, once your crust has reached that pale golden brown state, you're gonna pull it out and then pour the filling on top of it. And this is pretty universal across both recipes. Now you'll bake the filling until it's set. For the New York Times recipe, this is about 10 to 15 minutes. And for the Martha Stewart recipe, this is about 20 to 25 minutes. It's a little bit longer. I suspect this is because you've already kind of boiled the egg yolks in the lemon curd for the New York Times recipe, whereas in the Martha Stewart recipe, you're just you know, straight up using the egg yolks with the condensed milk, so you need to cook them a little bit more in the oven. And once the filling is set, you'll remove them from the oven and let it cool down until it reaches room temperature. I know this part is like super unbearable for me, but you really gotta wait until it reaches room temp. Once it reaches room temp, you gotta pop it in the fridge for another 2 hours, which is like another such a painful part of this process. But you know, it's a necessary evil. It'll make it taste so much better, and it'll be a lot more set when you cut into it. So with the New York Times recipe, I got a little excited and I took it out of the fridge about 30 minutes early. So it's not quite as set as it could have been, but you know, I'm just gonna take it. It still tasted great, it still looks decent, so you know, it's a win. And the very last step after you kind of cut your bars and you're ready to serve them is to dust them with a generous amount of powdered sugar. And for the New York Times recipe, they actually ask you to put on a little bit of flaky sea salt too. So, you know, go ahead and sprinkle that on as well as the powdered sugar. But for the Martha Stewart recipe, you're just good to go with simply powdered sugar. And voila, we are done with both recipes, both New York Times and Martha Stewart. I have them both here with me right now. Right off the bat, if we're gonna compare them, you can definitely notice a difference in coloring. So with the New York Times recipe, right off the bat, you can tell it's this deeper yellow color, whereas the Martha Stewart recipe is more of a pale yellow, kind of like ice cream almost, like milk was mixed into it. And the crust for both of these, they're pretty thick, I'm not gonna lie. There's some thick boys, a couple of C's in there. But yeah, I think right off the bat you notice that the aesthetic and the appearance of the Martha Stewart recipe, it just looks more put together. It looks very nice, very well done, very elegant and clean, a lot more set, and it just looks more appetizing. Whereas the New York Times recipe, maybe if I had let it set a little bit longer, the bars would have looked a little bit better, but you could tell that the filling is a little bit softer and gooier, and the crust is a little bit more crumbly as well. So I have gotten to try both of these lemon bars, and I actually interviewed some of my friends and family as well, but I have a clear winner. My household has a clear winner when it comes to these two recipes. And that winner is the New York Times recipe. Why? Well, the New York Times recipe is by far better in terms of flavor. Appearance-wise, it's really not that great, but the flavor of the lemon bar itself, the filling, is a little bit more sour, a little bit more complex with the olive oil and the flaky sea salt. The crust is a little bit crumbly and not as strong. I would say that Martha Stewart has a better crust on her lemon bar, but the filling, you just can't beat a good filling when it comes to lemon bars. The Martha Stewart filling is a little bit sweeter just because it uses that sweetened condensed milk, which is pretty heavy, whereas the New York Times one is a little bit more tart and more sour. But I think when you add that powdered sugar on top anyway, you can kind of counteract any of that sourness. So if you want a deeper sort of lemony flavor in your lemon bars, definitely go for the New York Times recipe. All right, thanks so much for watching this week's video, and until next week, stay safe, guys. Bye.